just to get a chance to listen and learn from Blake is absolutely incredible. And I'm just really excited for a new month, and we get a chance to celebrate and listen to my friend, my brother, Mr. Blake Goad.
You did that last time, dude. That was good. That was awesome. How y'all doing today, leadership? There we go. Well, this is stream. Man, those lights are bright today, aren't they? Ooh, I need sunglasses. My future's so bright. Throwing it back there. If you know, you know. But y'all doing awesome today? Awesome. Well, of course, I have to start with a joke. And this is, some of you may get this, some of you may not. This is going to be funny. If you get it later on, it'll be good. But this Jewish guy went to this other his rabbi, and said, "Hey, Rabbi, my son became a Christian and left my house, and I don't know what to do." And the rabbi goes, "You're not going to believe it. My son became a Christian and left the house as well." And he goes, "Well, what should we do?" He goes, "I think we should pray to God and ask him for advice and see what he should do." So they pray to God, and they're, "God, give us advice. What should we do?" And then God goes, "Well, first, you're not going to believe what happened to my son." Y'all get that later. It's okay. That's a delayed reaction on that joke. It's okay. I thought it was funny when I heard it, but y'all get it later. If you don't know, Jesus is God's son. Didn't y'all get that later? But y'all ready for leadership today? We're going to jump right in today, guys. I am not going to be too long today because I want to get PT up here. But today, I am talking about being a beyond you leader. A beyond you leader. And what that means is how many of you know it's important to be a leader? But it's also important to have people in your life that you can empower to lead when you're not there. And I love this quote, and it simply says, one of the most valuable things is knowing not just how to lead, but when to lead. And being a leader is not just showing up and doing things, but it's also being there for people. And one of the greatest things we've found here at G5 is when we're having people lead, point number one is have people help lead. Point number one is have people help. Have people help. And one of the biggest things here at G5 is we talk about this all the time is we invite people to do life with us. And if you watch at G5, we have so many amazing leaders, but if you watch, the leaders bring people with them to lead. And last night, this is going out, but last night we had locker room, and, Junior told the story about when Dad asked him to just take a wall. And he was like, "I don't know what that means, but what do you mean take a wall?" And he just says, "Have Josh's back on the wall. Take the wall." And what he found out was that it grew him so much, and he found another running buddy that he can look up to. But how many of you know that have people help in the sense of just have them there with you? You don't have to teach them anything. Just have them with you, and by observing, they will grow. By observing, they will grow. Some of the greatest leadership lessons I have ever learned in my life was not by somebody teaching me or telling me. It was by watching people. And it was by my dad just saying, "Hey, bud, come with me to this meeting. Or watch this video, or come listen to this podcast, or go do this with me, or hey, go take somebody with you to go do this." But what it did is here's the big thing about taking somebody with you. It not just grows the person you're taking with you, it grows you. Because here's what I found by when you take somebody with you. How many of you know the more you take people with you, the more you learn how to deal with people? You learn how to deal with people. And, no matter what business you're in, no matter where you live, what you do, people is your business. And we have so many amazing different businesses that come to G5, but how many of you know your businesses would not work if people did not go to your business or ask or need the services that you give? People are everything. It's so true. Point number two, is how do I help you? So point number one was have people help, but how do I help you? As a leader, my dad always says this, your cup overflows, but where does the overflow go? The overflow in your cup, where does it go? One of the greatest things you can do is have the overflow pour into people's empty cups. I heard a leader say one time, he said, sometimes teaching people's not overflowing your cup. It's just having a conversation and spending time with people is when they learn the most. Like I said a few minutes ago, one of the greatest leadership lessons I've ever learned was not by somebody teaching me or my dad telling me something. It was just by me observing him leading other people. The overflow. It was how you lived your life. I love this. The value of life is measured by how much you give away. People always say, I work, but how much do you give? One of the greatest gifts of a leader is being able to give something of your day. And now, don't get me wrong, one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing you have in your day is time. And my dad always says, the greatest gift I can give people is an hour of my time, but I know that I will never get that hour back. So make the time count. No matter what you do, where you go, what you do, make it count. I love this quote by Mother Teresa. It says, you'll never really live until you have done something for someone who can never repay you for it. What are you doing for somebody right now that you don't expect anything back from? One of the greatest gifts you can ever give people is give them something of your life and you don't expect something back. I won't forget when you all brought your little boy to church and he saw my little light up sticks. And I remember and I'm not trying to make this about me, but I took 2 minutes just to talk to him. But what he doesn't know is that filled me up more than it was me filling him up. Because it knew me and that drum kit over there matters. The overflow of me coming off the drum kit and took 2 minutes with a little boy that loves drums impacted me more than it probably impacted him. Because it knows, how many know, when you take time for people like that, for a little boy that just looks up to you and goes, I want to do that, that makes you know what you're doing matters. What you do matters. I remember I don't remember how long ago this was, but we were doing an event, and we had another little boy came over to me, and he goes, can I play your drum kit? And I said, dude, I would love to. I said, at the moment, we can't do it. And I said, come back a little later, and I'll take you up on stage, and we'll do it. And he goes, okay. So they left, and they came back, and I said, we can go do it now. And the parents, after it was over, came up to me and said, for a second, I thought you weren't going to keep your word. Thank you for keeping your word and setting the example to show my son that your word matters. What you say matters. The time you take matters. Point number 3 is ask questions. Ask questions. Some of the greatest leaders ask the greatest questions. And I talked about this at Locker Room one time. This is months ago. And a guy came up to me afterwards and said, how do I know if I'm asking the right questions? And I just simply said, if you just keep asking questions, the right ones will eventually come out. Just ask. At a young age, I used to drive my parents nuts because I used to ask so many questions. And finally, I remember my mom came to my dad one day and said, honey, what do we do? He won't stop asking questions. And dad told my mom and said, honey, great leaders ask questions, and he just wants to know what the plan is because he wants to help take charge of what's going on. He wants to know the plan. Great leaders need to know the plan. And it was so funny because and how many of you know at 5 and 6 years old, I didn't know what a good question was. But I knew I had to ask questions. And as you mature, the more questions you ask, the questions get better and better. And here's what I found out. When you listen to other leaders ask questions, then you can take from those. I remember my dad told me one day, he was talking to a guy, and he said, the guy goes, well, how do you know how to ask questions when we go to a meeting or a dinner or something? He goes, I never leave home without 2 good questions in mind I'm going to ask the leader when I get there. What are you going to ask? I love this. You can tell what kind of a leader is by the questions they ask other people. You can tell what kind of leader a leader is by the questions they ask other people. One of the greatest things that I've ever learned from my father and my mother is no matter what situation you're in, even if you're the leader, always ask questions. You know, people always come to us and they want to tell us how things are done, they wanted things to be done. And one of the greatest things my dad taught me is this, Blake, if you will listen to people, they more than anything just want their way considered more than they want their way taken advantage of or done. People just want to know that their opinion matter. When you're having a conversation with people, ask them questions about their opinion, and then once they're done, you can take something from it. But one of the greatest things is just you don't have to actually use their opinion or their advice. But how many of you know, how many of you know it's important to feel important? It's important to feel important. And how many of you know when you ask questions, you feel important? You ask questions and you feel important. But as a leader, don't be scared to ask questions that nobody else is asking. Don't be scared to. Because how many of you know sometimes those questions you don't ask may be the breakthrough in the meeting that you need to ask? Or the situation you're in. Or whatever the situation is. I remember a long time ago, we had a situation here. I don't even know if situations rule. It's fun. But we had a situation here, and my dad asked a clarifying question. And I don't remember what the question was, but I remember the reaction from the guy he asked the question to. And the guy left, and the guy came back, and he goes, "Thank you for asking a question I didn't know I needed to be asked." Because he said, if you wouldn't have asked that question, I would have kept doing the things I was doing. And now I know I need to change because of a simple question you asked. And to be honest, I think the question my dad asked the guy was, "What do you want? What do you want?" And the guy didn't know what he wants. And I remember I said, "Dad, well, what do you tell people if they don't know what they want?" I said, "What do you tell people?" I said, "What do you ask them?" And he goes, "Well, I ask them what they don't want." You know, if people know what they want, but if they don't know what they don't want, figure it out. I remember at a young age, you know, my dad, I used to want stuff, and then I didn't want stuff. And my dad looked at me and goes, "Blake, what do you not want?" Because once you know what you don't want, you can eventually figure out what you do want, and you can take steps from there. Take steps from there. So I just want to encourage you all to don't be afraid to ask questions that other people are not thinking of. And you're saying, Blake, well, how do I know if they're not thinking those questions? Well, to be honest, you won't know until you ask. You won't know until you ask. But I just want to encourage you to have people help. Take people with you. And just ask. Here's a question you can ask people. Hey, I'm going to this meeting. Is there any questions you think I should ask this person? Or hey, is there anything you think I should say to this person? Because here's what you do. When you ask that person that question, it gets them thinking in the way you think and the way you need them to think. There's so many times where my dad will come to me or my sister and go, "Hey, I'm going to meet this person. There's something you don't see. Is there something I don't see that you see? And there's something I should say or ask that I'm not thinking of." He already knows all the questions he should ask. But how many of you know perspective on every situation comes from asking other people their opinion on the situation? And my dad will tell you this, but there's so many times, every time I go to do something, I immediately call him and go, "Hey, are you okay that I do this?" And that's a question. Because how many of you know, I know that I have the green light for him to do it, but I never want to go around him. Even though I have the green light, I still want him to know that I'm doing it right. I always want to make sure I give the authority and the honor back to my father. Because how many of you know, like I said, I can go to him and go, "Hey, I'm doing this. Are you okay with it? And B, is there something that I don't see you see?" So have people help. How do I help you? How do I help you? Now that could be another question. How do I help you? And ask questions. my father is the master at asking questions. The master at asking questions, and he's probably going to deny that and go, no, don't. But trust me, he's the master at asking questions. So I want to encourage you when you're around him, ask questions. One of the greatest questions you can ever ask my father is, what can I do for you? Where do you need me? And that goes with anybody. What can I take off your plate? And that goes with how do I help you? How do I help you? You know, it's like that old, help me help you, help me help you, help you help me, help you help me, right? And if any of you understood anything I just said, that's awesome, because I lost track there for a second. It was great. But how many of you know, asking people, how are you today? I remember we have a friend, and I'm wrapping up here, but there's a guy that we go, and he takes care of us at a place we go to, and one day, my dad wasn't there, and I went in and just said, hey, bro, how are you doing? You good? You doing anything? And just asking him a simple question. After I left, he called my dad and said, hey, did you tell your son to come in and talk to me? And my dad's like, no, I didn't even know he was there. And he goes, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing, because your son just made my day. Guys, I wasn't doing that to make me look good. I was doing it because he taught me that people matter. And asking questions, bringing people with you, and asking if they need anything matters to them even more than it matters to you. Because that was 5 or 10 minutes out of my day that I'm never going to get back. But I knew by asking a question will change his outlook on the whole day. So I just want to encourage you to ask questions, bring people with you, and just make sure that you help people when they need help. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my amazing father up, Mr. Tim Goad.
Wow. No, I've got this here, man. I am so glad to see you. Welcome. As he was talking, by the way, brilliant, holy God of heaven and earth, I realize as a leader, watch this, stay with me, okay, how different it is as a leader to get things done, right? And how to build people. As leaders, we're very task-driven. I got to move this from here to here. We got to get this done, and this is how you should do it, right? But what most people don't realize is all you are building when you give task are followers. But when you build a leader, you teach them not what to think, but how to think. And so that's just so brilliant. But it can be very abstract because as leaders, leadership is about getting something done. But we really feel like it's deeper than getting something done. It's how a person feels while they're getting it done. And all of you know, if you're appreciated, you will give way more than was ever expected of you. It's just that critical. I fix problems. That's what I do. Whether it's performance problems or culture problems or process problems or people problems. By the way, people are always the answer and they're always the challenge. I don't call them problems, but they're always the challenge. Okay, any leader that's leading anybody doing anything know what I'm talking about. So it's just really, really important. I want to say my buddy Mickey Cruz is here today, and I'm not trying to embarrass you, Mickey, but his father passed away yesterday, and I just want you to know I love you, and I'm sorry. That is such a weird feeling when your dad leaves. There's something so deep in it. It's always challenging when you lose your mom, but when you lose that, as a man, I think it's even more daunting because all of a sudden you get posed with this question: who's going to lead now? Who's going to set the example now? And I don't know a lot, but I know this. I know that you're going to get the privilege to finish what your father never finished. And it's a big, big undertaking. By the way, as a son, I never thought it was dishonoring me to finish what my father had started and take it to a whole nother level. And so I'm excited about that. I love leaders and I love being with leaders. Leaders fascinate me. They are a puzzle to put together and sometimes take apart and put back together again. How do you increase your performance? How do you increase your productivity? How do you increase your efficiency? Well, I want to speak to you just for a little bit about the power of commitment. Commitment. It all begins with a commitment. When I say commitment to you right now, I don't know what it means to you, but I think I can bring out a feeling. By the way, leaders, anytime you're talking to somebody, you want them to experience three things. You want to tell them what you want them to know. You want to let them know what you want them to do. And you also want to make sure that you create the feeling of doing that with them. You got to talk about it. You imagine if you help somebody. You imagine if you make a difference in somebody's life. In every one of your businesses, it's so critical. Whether you're selling popsicles or life insurance or cars, people leave with a feeling. They leave with a feeling. They're experiencing, they're either celebrating or they're absolutely the saddest days of their life and they're having to move forwards. So when you start to look at commitment, you remember explicitly in your life right now who broke their commitment to you, who said, I promise, and didn't keep their promise. A commitment. You also remember the people in your life that said, I will, and they went out of their way to make sure they did. You remember those in your life that love you. I've been talking a lot about friendship at G5 and in our culture because it is just such a powerful, 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 powerful thing in our lives. They now are doing neuroscience and finding out that being in a room with a group of people, they now have found out that in the area of communication, that literally you connect with people on brain waves. It is so powerful. So when you hang with certain people, you literally develop their thinking, their processing. It's why sometimes you can look at generations of people, and for generations, they never break the thinking. The thinking. If you're looking for a leader to get great questions, I would encourage you to be bold enough to ask somebody, can I check my thinking? Can I check how I'm dealing with this? I was on the phone. I would never divulge information, but it's a big challenge that God has given me the privilege to be a part of right now. And I was on the conversation, and all this person kept saying to me is, I wished I could have talked to you 2 months ago. I wished I could have talked to you 2 months ago. See, I don't know what you're facing right now. I don't know what you're going through. But you have predetermined that you only have so many options. But what happens if you have options outside of that? That you can't think of it and see it in the realm of which you're operating because you already know your limitations. But what happens if you have somebody come into your life that's not controlled by those limitations, that can set and show you another way to do the same thing in a bigger and better and more productive way? So let me give you 10 things on commitment real quick. Are you ready? You ready? You gonna stay with me? All right, get the energy. Let's go. We're gonna do it big. So here's what I can tell you. The most important thing, number one, before committing to anything, you've got to ask yourself, do I really wanna do this? Do I really wanna do this? Anybody besides me made a commitment and you weren't really certain whether you wanted to do it or not? Those don't normally work out. Oftentimes people commit to things in the heat of the moment, and their commitment is based on the face value of the things that they presently can see. Now, just stay with me, okay? Because this is going to be full of information today. Whatever commitment you're making right now, there are unforeseen things in it that you don't even know about that you're going to have to handle when you step into it, right? You're going to make a commitment, and then there are going to be 3 or 4 other things on it that you weren't expecting that are going to show up to test your commitment to see if you will stay committed. Those of you that are leading people right now, the level of the commitment of the people that you're leading will absolutely determine the level of success that you can have. Because if they don't stay committed, and so we need to give people some questions to really reflect on before they make commitments. So here's one question. Are you willing to face the challenges that come along the way? If you're going to make a commitment, how many of you know it's not going to be perfect? It's not going to be perfect. Are you willing to pay the price? That's what that's really asking. Are you willing to go through the learning curve and the development of all the necessary skills that you might need to go along the way? I'm working with several people right now that are coming out of work mentality. They've been trained to be the greatest workers in the world, and we love work. But getting them to switch to an entrepreneurial mindset and learn how to lead people that have entrepreneurial minds versus employment minds, wow. See, a lot of time in employment, you're always thinking, well, I'm only going to get paid this much, so I'm only going to do this much. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, whatever I have to do, I'll do it no matter how long I have to work, no matter what I have to invest. Well, that kind of thinking, how many of you know that causes conflict? Because if you're a leader and you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, why do you struggle with even paying the price? It's because in their DNA, it's not built yet to think. Let me give you a biblical example of this. The children of Israel leave Israel. They get free. The problem of it is what they had been for hundreds and hundreds of years left with them. So even in their freedom, they still acted like they were in slavery. So right now, you need to have somebody in your life right now that's saying to you, can you think free? Can you think outside the box? It's a challenge for me as a leader because if I get people in the room that try to box me in, it takes so much energy for me to deal with that I literally sometimes have got to say, right now, I only need people that can see it and not try to fix everything. Do you understand what I'm saying? By the way, in case you're wondering, is this biblical? Jesus got ready to pray for a little girl, and he got everybody else out of the room, and then he prayed. What was he doing? He was removing the unbelief and the skepticism so that he could get the return that he so desperately wanted. I could stop right now and ask you, who's in your circle right now, that can't see you for who you are and cannot see where you're going, and they're trying to load it down instead of free it up? All right, that was worth the price of admission right there. So here's the next one. Are you willing to take time out for this, even if it means making some sacrifices on other things? One of the greatest principles my dad taught me is, son, you're going to have to give up in order to go up. He also told me, I'm not certain it was that nice, but he told me, he said, you're going to have to grow up to go up. Well, what do you mean by that? I'm glad you asked. Put a dash and write the meaning. You got to get to maturity where you can lead above the problem and lead above the nuisance. So here's the last one. Are you ready? Most importantly, do you really want this? I want to ask you this question right now. What is it that you want? And I want to ask you a clarifying question. Do you really want it? Do you really want it? Or are you just making a decision in the heat of the moment? If you think this is not a reality, can I just give you a reality? Every year, people make these New Year's resolutions, and they buy a gym membership. And they show up at the gym, and they can't find a parking space, and they tolerate that for about 2 minutes, and then they leave and say, well, I'll come back tomorrow. And what you find is that most people in the heat of the moment, they make these decisions, they make these commitments, but they don't have the will to carry it out. How many of y'all have ever seen Rocky movies? Rocky movies. Da-da-da. You ever seen Rocky movies? Yeah. I went to see with my friend. He owned the world's largest airplane company. And after we went to the movie, we decided to go home and run like Rocky. It was the stupidest decision I've ever made in my life. We're out at night, 12 o'clock at night, running down the road. And I'm like, what am I doing? I went and got inspired, but I didn't understand the price that it was going to take. Almost everything in your life that you make a deep commitment to is going to put you in some kind of pain. Okay, number 2, focus on one main thing at a time. That's for Bree Goad right there. Because I'm a visionaholic, and I will walk into a room and I'll go, yeah, and yeah. The more things I've got going, yeah. See, people normally have this or that mentality. And I just refuse to live that way. I've never lived that way. I got this and this and this and this and this and this mentality. And those that mentality people, they don't like me. And I get that, but I'm going to keep pushing on the container that you live in to where your brain will get to where you realize if you are, this is critical what I'm saying right now, if you are in the same discipline from this and this and this and this, if you're doing the same thing you are gifted to do, you can do multiple things and be even more productive. Do you know why? You get energy from watching the other things, and you get better because of doing other things. But here's what we do. We box ourselves in. Okay, I'm gonna get off my box. But focus on the main thing at the time. So many times in meetings, I'll be going, and Bree will go, Daddy, can we just focus on this right now? And I'm going, yes, I would be honored to do that. So here's what I wanna beg you to do. This has been a big discipline in my life. Pick one thing and stick to it. Watch this, till it sticks to you. Whatever you're doing should be something you become. I don't have to get up and be somebody I'm not, because I am who I am. And when I sit down with business owners, if you're going to be great at what you do, you've got to become that. You've got to become that. But if you live your life in little boxes that you take the lids off and put it back on, it's tough. So don't try to take on more skills until you've had some significant progress in the one that is most important. Okay, I know you got questions, but I just want to encourage you. There are people that they just chase too many things, and they get out of their gift and everything they chase. So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of dear friends of mine, and as a leader, I always want to put them in the same discipline in a different project. Okay, are you tracking with me? Because this is critical for you in your leadership. Number 3, don't complicate it. Make it simple, because when it's simple, it's sustainable. Don't make it complicated. You ever get around people that write things up and they make it so complicated? Do you know why? Because they're never going to have to do it. So I would just encourage you, when you start off on something, don't make it so fancy and so fussy and so complex. Because if you forget the key to sustainability is simplicity. Everything you're doing right now in your life, you should take it back apart and say, how can I make it simpler? I got to make it simpler. Most people's lives are just way too complicated, way too much detail, way too much. It just drains energy out of you. You can just feel it leaving you. We make it so difficult. And I want to tell you what you're going to find out in your life is when you make it so difficult, the initial burst of energy fades off very quickly. It's why you have got great energy for a minute and then it leaves. It's because it's too difficult. It's too complicated. And so the more confused you are in your mind, the harder it will be for you to do anything impactful. If you're double-minded or you don't understand it, it's why so many people are unable to carry out their health plans in their life because their subconscious mind associates being healthy with a hassle and pain, and I don't want to do it. When you should be thinking about this is a joy, this is an honor. My wife and I every day walk and run and bike and do this. And can I tell you, every day I look at her and go, I cannot believe I get to do this. And I'm not trying to beat up on anybody, but anybody that doesn't do it, I could not understand why you would not. Because if you ever get around somebody that cannot because of a physical ailment, they always are going, I wish I could do that. It's such a gift. Number 4, are you okay? All right, you're good. Number 4, choose efficiency over creativity. I can't even believe I'm saying that, okay? Because I love being creative. But the problem of it is sometimes we get so creative and we get so many moving parts, okay? I'm sorry, I'm preaching to somebody here. Dreams are so important, but boy, the thing that matters is action. Can you take action in it? So I am the guy that's going to stand around and encourage creativity all day long, but it has to be put in the right place. And then there needs to be simple little steps that are very efficient to get it done. You need to be thinking about right now, what is it in my industry that I need to be doing to simplify and get efficiency? Because when I'm efficient, I can be effective. And if I'm just being creative, it means I have not yet put the wheels under it. So I'll use another exercise thing, okay? But if you start exercising, instead of trying new exercises every day and exhausting yourself, you gotta pick one, the best one for you, and stick with a few basic core exercises and be consistent with it. Stop trying to do it all. My son, when I was teaching him how to play golf, he just was so creative and he would pull off these shots that he should have never pulled off. And when you get under pressure, you can't pull it off, right? By the way, leaders, right now, are you training your people that they can operate during the highest form of pressure? Because this is critical. And I used to beg him. He'd say, well, hit this club and hit this club. I said, Blake, I can't hit that club. This is the club that I've got to hit, and I've got to get consistent with it. And so finally, I went and played golf with him for his birthday the other day. Oh my gosh. I was like, what in the world happened in you? I'm swinging like a mad person. The ball's flying out there and it looks pretty good. And then all of a sudden he'd stand up and just kind of barely swing at it. And I'd watch the ball just fly 50 yards further than mine. And I'd be like, what got into your body? We were playing best ball, so it was kind of fun. And then we would go to the next shot and it would be like, there is no way in the world you should be aiming where you're aiming. And he'd hit the ball and it would fly and it would land. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Let me tell you what I noticed about his game. He stopped trying to do tricky things and he mastered. He mastered. Now, some of that takes maturity. right? So let me ask you a question. Where is it in your life that every other week you change what you say, you change your messaging, you try some new thing you never did before, trying to get people to move? I would just encourage you, make it simple. Make it simple. And don't focus so much on the flash that you miss the simple move that gives you your greatest return. Number 5, avoid being paralyzed by analysis, overthinking. You just get so much information. I'm helping some guys in some companies right now that are going to be crazy awesome. And one of the things I'm just so deliberate at, matter of fact, I'd love to help a couple of you guys do some other cool things, but can I tell you, I am pounding on getting away from overthinking. It should be simple enough that a 5-year-old could understand it. And Edison said, if you can explain it in a way, Einstein, said, if you could explain it in a way that a 5-year-old could understand it, you truly now understand it. Simplify it. Simplify it. Watch what happens. You're going to find out in your life that if you get all this analytical stuff going on, you're going to be paralyzed and you're going to lose your energy. Stop analyzing too much. Stop reading into it. I can do this. Listen, I not only want to know what does not work, I want to know what works and why it works. A lot of people have things that work and they have no idea why it works. And let me tell you why that's important. Because it's not repeatable and it's not teachable if you don't know why. Number 6, set realistic goals and expectations. You ever just get around people and they just way overestimate what they can do and they try to sell it in a way that no one buys it because they just know that, you know what, there's going to be more to the story than you're selling me or telling me. So critically important. So number 7, pace yourself to avoid burnout. This is so critical. Leaders have to have margin in your life. You really have got to be willing to work hard, but you have to remember to pace yourself. You've got to find a way where you can absolutely go out and let your hair down. I would encourage you every so many minutes of work to get up from your chair and go outside and walk in the sun. One of the reasons why is the latest research is it removes depression and discouragement out of people. But go breathe some air. Go. If you're facing a challenge, if things are not going well, step outside and I promise you, you will get a whole new energy and a whole new look at it. So sprinters, people that run sprints, they can run really fast for a few minutes. But marathoners, they pace themselves and they run for hours. Can I ask you a question? My name is PT. Do you have a sustainable pace right now in your life? Is it sustainable? Somebody said you throw a bucket of water on a rock and it doesn't do anything. You let a drop of water fall on that rock every day and it will create a hole in that same rock. Working smart, not just hard, is so critical. Part of pacing yourself is to take a break and allow yourself opportunity to fully unwind, to get away, to unplug. You need to find that place for you. Some of you, it's the mountains. Some of you, it's the beach. Some of you, it's a trail. Some of you, it's a lake. I don't know where you do it, but you've got to find these places in your heart. Number 8, value process over perfection. Value process over perfection. Man, That really ugly thing called perfection steals more people from their future than you could ever imagine. You can be so enthused about something, and one perfectionist or critic can come in and measure it, or the critic in your own brain starts talking to you. You're going to have to learn how to tell it, shut your mouth. I'm not listening to you. I'm not taking counsel from you. That all or nothing mindset is very unproductive and very inefficient. Everybody has got to get to the place in their life where they literally get rid of perfection. Number 9, learn to say no. This has been so hard for me personally. I overcommit, but I'm getting way better at it now because I realize how much more effective I am in my life when I say no to the less important things. Being consistent is very hard for a yes person. You have people right now that you're training and you're equipping, and they can't say no. And so I just encourage you to write these little principles down and start talking about one a day to your people. And do it. And talk to them. And have them tell examples and tell stories. I just want to encourage you to prioritize. And don't let anything drag you away or distract you away from the priority that you need to be committed to. Do you know what your top priorities are? My last one, and what a joy to be with you on leadership at G5. My last one is forgive yourself for not always being as consistent as you want to. And then come back to your commitment. Forgive yourself for not being consistent as you want to be, and then come back to your commitment. We've got a 5K coming up, G5K in September, and we've been training for it, and so we go out and run, and it's so crazy. Can I even tell you, on the app, Couch to 5K, it now starts out with, good morning, it's so good to see you. Are out running, and then it encourages you while you're running. Isn't that amazing? It started out with, get yourself ready to go. You know what I'm talking about? It's amazing that they found out how important encouraging is. But for us, we run, and then it seems like we go backwards, and then we run, and then some days we miss running. How many of you know if you beat yourself up and you just put yourself down, you're never going to stay consistent? What you got to do is go, okay, I missed this, but I'm coming back. Go back to your initial commitment. So let me ask you a question right now in closing. Just you and I. Let me coach you for a second. What are 5 commitments that you need to make that you are presently not doing? What are the commitments that you need to make that you're not doing? And or what 5 commitments are you doing right now that you need to adjust your commitment on those? I want to remind you that most people live their whole life without ever fully committing to anything. Your life will be a sum total of the commitments you made and the commitments that you kept. So I want you to wrestle down this thing on commitment and start asking yourself, where can I make deeper, better, bolder, more bodacious, more powerful commitments in my life? And where am I committed right now that I'm not getting the greatest return for my life? I'm proud of you. Keep dreaming, keep fighting, keep going for your goals. And I know your best days are just ahead of you. I love you. Thank you, Charge. Boom. Yeah. All right.